While the ongoing pandemic has posed huge challenges for us at PVPA to stay connected as a community of students and artists, our becoming familiar with how to do that while not together physically has actually opened doors. The Visual Art and Technical Theater Department has taken this opportunity to reach out to a network of artists that extends far beyond our region. Each week we'll be talking with a different artist who will share stories of their path to and through the arts. And in doing this, our students will get a chance to see where the work that we do at PVPA might lead them in the future.
So I am incredibly excited today to have Bianca Mauro with us. Bianca was one of my first students ever, and pre-PVPA era for me. And just a little bit to give you a sense of the world that we came from. I'm also an alum of the same school, Noble and Greeno. Often at PVPA, we get down on our resources and our facilities, but also at PVPA, we're an art school. Whereas at Noble's, arts weren't really the highest priority, and they've since upgraded in a major way in their facilities. But when Bianca and I were working together, we did everything on the stage, and we're crouched over a chop saw on the ground and things like that. And Bianca since that point, has leveled up in the realm of technical theater in a way that has exceeded pretty much any student of mine ever. And so I'm very thrilled that Bianca, who now is the founder and director of BRM Production Management, has chosen to spend a little time with us today to tell us about her journey through the arts. So Bianca, if you'd like to just maybe keep in mind we're talking to 7th to 12th grade students here, and if you can go way back in memory lane and just think about your initial calling, what got you involved in the arts that you did, and how that started the whole ball rolling, and then you can just kind of roll about where you went from there.
Okay. First of all, thank you for that really humbling intro. I actually don't think I can live up to any of that, but thanks, Martin. That's great. So it was great to temporarily see all of your faces. I'm going to keep convincing myself that I can still see you and I'm not just kind of talking to myself. And like Martin said, if anything pops into your head that you want to say, throw it in the chat. I'm terrible at paying attention, but out of the three of us, one of us will figure out that somebody put something there. So like Martin said, I went to the same school that he went to prior to coming back and teaching there, Nobles, which definitely didn't have an arts focus at the time that we went there. It's epic now, but that's beside the point. So I was always interested in both performance and visual art. And I was kind of, just one of those like extremely loud, flaily, performative people. And because of that, I meandered my way into theater. And that's where I really sort of found a home. In the time that Martin and I worked together, I tried all of the aspects of theater. I performed in a few shows, which were super, super fun. But then ultimately realized that I got more joy on the other side of things. I got more joy from the painting, from the scenic design aspect, from the creation of something out of nothing. And everyone has performers have the reason that they're passionate, but what stoked the passion in me was that concept of going from an idea in your head to a sketch on a napkin to a thing in 3D to a whole bunch of people looking at it and going, that's awesome, or that, that really set the stage for something that was powerful or informative or, made them feel things. So I got into theater in middle school without any sense of really what I was doing, in a school that did not hinder that interest, but that wasn't like super, super focused, as Martin said. And then I consider myself super lucky that Martin came to teach at that school. So I'm going to push a little bit of this back on you because I have absolutely no idea if I would be doing what I'm doing today had I not had a super cool mentor like Martin, who basically just let me be weird. And and it is my weird that has gotten me pretty much everywhere. So I went into scenic design, scenic painting early. Dabbled in other visual arts until I realized that I'm not terribly good at them whatsoever, despite my trying. Ended up applying to some colleges for scenic design, got into a few. And then in a move only a 17 or 18-year-old would understand, decided to take a year off. And in retrospect, I'm really glad I did. My parents were none too happy about any of that. And in the year off, I went to work. So I had some internships doing scenic design here and there. I actually was like an IT nerd because it was 1999 and everyone was an IT nerd. And then I, from a friend of a friend who was probably a roommate or something, found out that if you showed up at like midnight at the Fleet Center or Bank Boston or whatever it was called back then, but it's the Boston Garden now. If you showed up there at around midnight and you stood in line and there was enough to do, somebody might let you get on the over-hire union call to do the glorious task of pushing boxes into trucks. But it was turning time into money. And as a broke college student, that was exactly what I needed. And I was able to convince myself that this was totally related to the field I wanted to be in by pushing hot boxes into other boxes. So not only did it pay some bills, but it provided me with a place to meet people who were doing what I was who were doing what I wanted to do. Although, make no mistake, I was actually nowhere near any of the people I wanted to meet. I literally pushed boxes from like the back of the arena into trucks for months and didn't meet a soul. But
Sorry, Bianca, by the people you wanted to meet, are you talking about the artists that were in the?
No, like not the artists. I'm talking about the stage managers, the production managers, the lighting designers, the scenic people. Like those are the people I wanted to meet. The people I met were like the grumpy union guys who were like pushing boxes out of the back of the arena. And it's like still the same guys there. That nothing has changed. So as it turns out, and I'm going to say this the nicest way I can, because I would totally say this to anyone I worked with back then. If you are slightly smarter than a bag of hammers, you will do really well at that job. And so I kept doing that. And then I did it throughout the summer. It actually ended up leading to pushing things around in other places. I know none of this sounds awesome, but I swear I have a point. So I went from like pushing things around and picking things up and putting them down to doing that in different places and meeting different people. And when I explain how the early parts of my career went, I definitely like to emphasize the point that I have done every crappy job that there is to do in entertainment. And I wouldn't take any of that back, because running a company now, I have no shame when I ask people to do things that might not be glamorous, because I have absolutely done all of those things. So again, I apologize to any parent that may hear this. But, I think for me, it was absolutely vital. I had what I thought was the plan that I was supposed to have. And I made the portfolio with a lot of Martin's help. I shopped that portfolio around. I went to interviews and I got, accepted to a school in Pennsylvania. And at the time, I thought that going to that school for scenic design was like the thing I needed to do. As it turns out, after I took a year off, I ended up going to BU instead, still for scenic design. However, if I hadn't taken that year off, I wouldn't have realized how many other options and paths really existed, because I worked my tail off. When I say I took a year off, I didn't stop. I didn't sit down. I didn't breathe. I worked every shift that I could pick up for any show, any tour, any venue, any building, any food show. If I was scraping ham off a carpet at 2:00 in the morning for a Cisco food show, it still counted. Because I wanted to see what everybody in the entertainment industry, which includes all the crappy jobs, what everyone was doing, where was the upward motion? Where could you get a foot in the door? How could you get up? And I didn't get anywhere in that first year necessarily, but it gave me this incredible vision into this world of like, okay, none of this works how I think it works. None of it works like I've been told it might work, because I was being schooled by a lot of people, not you, Martin, but like by a lot of people who were very much theater oriented. And I was never really going to end up in theater. I just didn't know that yet. So I thought I was on a theater pathway. And then during that year, I realized that there's the whole rock and roll side of things that there is no roadmap to. And not only rock and roll, but there's public art, and there's like giant art construction, and there's stuff that there just aren't courses for. There aren't classes for that stuff, and there aren't even really classes in college still for those things. But taking a year off gave me the perspective I needed to go back to college and say, okay, I want to take these kinds of courses to prepare myself for the different paths that I want to try to forge. I hope that helps. Took a year off, got my head on straight, did every crappy job ever, didn't sleep, and then went to BU to pursue a degree in scenic design, because I wanted those skills. I wanted that knowledge. I wanted to learn from people who were really, really good at what they do. And so I did that. And then the whole time I was there, I continued to work as much as I could, because A, poor college student, and B, I wanted to stay relevant, because so much in arts and culture is just like, yeah, it's how hard you work and how good you are and when you show up, and you always show up, but it's also super important that you are just, your face is there. Your face is always there, because people don't sleep and they work too much, and that means they have really terrible short-term memories. And so if you're always in their face, you're going to get more work. So that's what I did. And I did that for 4 years while I was in BU. And by the time I got out of BU, I was a supervisor and booker for one of the labor companies that provided stagehands, riggers, forklift drivers, and stuff in the New England area. Myself, I was at that time driving a 26-foot box truck, and doing barricade for crappy rock shows. So there's like really big, heavy steel barricade, and it travels in its own truck because it always smells like gross things, really, really gross things. And so I would like follow the tour trucks to local venues in this crappy 26-foot box truck that rarely ever started, and would basically just be by myself with this hideous steel barricade in these horrifically dangerous racks. And I did that for a while. And then I was booking and doing other stuff, and I ended up getting plopped down at Gillette Stadium for a couple of summers in a row. And so by this time I was probably like 22-ish, 21, 22. And I was spending my summers doing, basically being the labor provider for Gillette Stadium. And that was a huge point for me in my career, because then I actually did start to meet the people that I wanted to meet to get the places I wanted to go. I started to meet more stage managers. I started to meet more production managers, and it wasn't always a good time. I yelled at by more stage managers and production managers in those years than I can even begin to describe, but I got my face in front of them. And I proved that I always showed up and I always did the thing, and you know, with minimal whining. And eventually, a tour came through that had come through years prior, and most of you will get a laugh out of this, and I have one of these here because Martin was like, bring visual aids, and I was like, oh. So a tour came through that had come through before, and they had just lost a tour carpenter, And by the way, tour carpenter has nothing to do with carpentry. Different discussion. But they had just lost a tour carpenter. And so they said, hey, do you want to come on tour with us tomorrow? We're leaving tomorrow. We need you to pack a bag. You're going to be gone for the next 2.5 years. And I went home, I packed a bag, and I evaporated for 2.5 years on this tour. You know, we don't get to pick our first tour. You don't get to say, I want to go on tour with an artist that I really love and really admire. But sometimes you just have to go with what's there. So I spent the next couple of years out with the Jonas Brothers. Anyway, so I ended up on my first tour. I started as the 7th of 7 carpenters, which has nothing to do with wood. I ended up in like a comical hazing situation, and then eventually clawed my way up to being an automation operator. There's a lot in between there, but it's all in the same tour. And automation is back to my IT geek, years, because all it is, it's programming. And especially back then, it was heavy programming. And so it's programming things that make stuff move. So there's some proprietary softwares out there. You learn them. There's some proprietary coding languages. And you sit at the time, which was like early 2000s, or I'll get to you, Alex. I knew that was going to happen because I said it twice. Earlier proprietary softwares for automation. I mean, it was like, if you can imagine like the old, when you see pictures of like, here's how we launched the spaceship, and it's like a room full of computers. That was like early automation in entertainment. It was not sexy. It was a lot of giant computers to make rather underwhelming things happen. But I'm really glad I got in when I did as an automation programmer, because I was one of the first 11 to learn and help discover and write one of the most common programming languages for it now. And I was the only female in automation programming for years and years and years and years. So Alex, a tour carpenter deals with the structures. So they put the stage together, they deal with props, they deal with moving parts, sometimes they deal with automation. Alex, the language I was talking about so there were 2 companies. I'm gonna rewind all of that. If you look up FTSI Navigator software, that's what it is called now. FTSI Navigator software. And honestly, there's not you can see a lot of sales pitches on the internet. There actually might be some like FAQs and stuff now, but back when we were doing it, you could not Google yourself out of a problem. Like it was not like, oh, let me just look up a YouTube video for that. It was just like, oh God, I'm so screwed. So ended up as a programmer on Jonas Brothers. And then I got sort of pigeonholed into that for years, which was fine at the time. So I was one of these 11 people. I was the only female. And for a while that was fine. I was like, this is okay. I have nothing to be sad about. I was living out of a suitcase, living out of a hotel, traveling the world, getting to see tons and tons of amazing places for the first time. And all of that was fine for like a good decade. And then in my late 20s, I started to sort of say, well, like, what's next? Because I don't really want to I don't really want to do this exact thing forever. And I've seen this hotel probably 6 times now. And I've seen that hotel probably 6 times now. And like, it's super magical, like the first couple times around. And then like, eventually you're like, I've been in this crappy van before in this tunnel in Dubai, in this traffic. And it's just, you have such limited time that like, the first couple times around are great, but then it gets old. So you start thinking about what's next. And for me, it was getting into stage management and production management, which were even more gender biased fields than touring in general. But I'm super stubborn, so here we go. So I started sort of knocking on those doors and trying to get the promotions and this and that. And I was successful. And then I was a little bit more successful. And then I sort of hit this wall. And the wall still very much exists today. If anyone read, I won't get into it too much, but an article came out in The Guardian yesterday that was none too flattering about the arts and culture touring industry specifically. I can tell you firsthand that everything in that article is true. And a lot of folks I know are mentioned in that article. So there, sometimes you just hit a wall. So instead of continuing to bash my head against the same stupid wall, I decided to make a change. So I decided to take all of the incredible knowledge that I had learned from doing every crappy job in the industry on my way up to was sort of stuck. Say, hey, to have the huge breadth of experience over the last, at that point, like 12 to 13 years. If I would do all these crappy things and I know all these bits, and there is no reason I can't do this for myself. There's no reason I have to wait for someone else to allow me to step into these roles. So I started BRM production management. I came off the road in 2015 and I positioned the company in that made me happier, which was facilitating installations as well as music festivals. So we do because they're an underserved sort of niche in public art. Independent artists, like most of you are going to either, already are or going to have ideas that might be bigger than their skill sets and they need help. And they may not already be aligned with a gallery and they may not already, or their funder might not already have it all figured out for implementation, R&D, and engineering. And that's where my firm comes in and say, your crazy idea is, we are going to figure it out. And that is literally our mission, is that come to me, and now it's an us. It was just a me for a long time. But people me with a wacky idea and we would figure it out together. And 90% of the time, it's the first time for both of us. I mean, who puts giant inflatables on top of buildings? Like who does that in a parade? I don't know why I'm stuck on inflatables right now, but like who takes deconstructs a boat, turns it upside down and like jams it in the ground in front of the aquarium? Just weird. The weirder it is, the more I'm into it, which has kind of been a holdover the whole time, the whole weird thing. But yeah, so that's what I do now. I help other people make their weird ideas big. And I don't regret any of it. This year's been weird, obviously. I would be lying if I said it wasn't weird. The entire arts and culture industry kind of evaporated overnight in March. But I have a great team of project managers that have been working with me for years. And we have just been brainstorming. We have been doing proposals. We have been doing like anything we can, training. They're all learning new softwares. They're learning Vectorworks and SketchUp and AutoCAD so that, they can draft with me and we can do more stuff together. I got everyone like Adobe licenses so that, they could hone their skills and get better during this time. So that when our clients do come back and the clients that we've been talking to this whole time are able to start to do installs and shows and festivals, that we are that much more ready and that much more able to help them be big and weird. Yeah, but that's my one word answer. Yeah, Sam. There have definitely been times where I feel like none of it was worth it. And I'm going to be just real with you right now. Like, please know this from the understanding that right now I'm 10 times bounce everything back. However, there have been absolutely times where I'm like, I could have just gone and gotten a job, like a real human, like my family expected me to do, and not constantly been wondering what's going to happen next, or how am I going to do this, or what do I have to create from scratch today to build a career out of. So there are moments when I feel like it wasn't worth it. And some of those were while I was trying to fight my way up ladders that either didn't exist or weren't very welcoming. And sometimes it's because a pandemic takes all your hard work and says like, oh, that's cute, and throws it out the window. However, like, I'm still going to say things that are going to be unpopular with parents. I don't regret any of the hard work that I've done. Not a single moment, not a single day, not a single early morning or late night or sleepless night. I don't regret a minute of that because all of it has made me a well-rounded production manager. And however, like, to be completely and utterly transparent, I probably could have spent my time at BU better or doing something else, just because of how things worked out. I feel like my stubbornness to go back and do the degree I was supposed to do, I might think I got in my own way there. I think that I maybe could have spent that time better. However, I did meet some wonderful people, and I made some great connections that I have kept until today. So I don't completely consider it like, it certainly wasn't a waste of time, but I feel like maybe I could have spent that time a little better. I hope that answers your question a little. So that's really tough. That is really, really tough. So in recent years, because now they're all kind of projects, I was lucky enough to get involved last year. I don't know if you guys know Nick Cave, the visual artist, not Nick Cave, the musician. But Nick Cave, the visual artist, he's a fiber artist, but he's also does a lot of 2D work as well. And I got to work with him and his partner, Bob, who is also a visual artist, last year to do an installation in 3 parts. So we filled up the BAC, which is the Boston Arts Center, or I'm probably screwing that up, BCA, Boston Center for the Arts. There we go. And we filled that up with these like giant inflatable things that Nick sewed in his studio, and they were insane. And I can show a picture of that in a minute. And then we turned them into a parade. So we installed them on the back of flatbed trucks and turned them into parade floats. And then we had a festival with them in Chester on the parade floats. When we got there was a big community festival with stages and music and DJs, and it was amazing. And then the 4th and final home for them was that we knocked the windows out of an abandoned bank and got to go inside and rig all these inflatables to the walls so that they were like pushing windows, and they are still there. And it is definitely one of the involved projects I've ever. Was one of the, when Nick Cave came to me, he had never worked with inflatables before. And I happened to have some other clients. So it was definitely one of the most collaborative projects I've had with an artist. And so for that, it's been one of the most fulfilling for me. Honestly, it's so cliche. I'm going to be so cliche right now. It doesn't matter at all what anyone else thinks of you ever. Be super weird. Be your weird. That's what I would tell me. Like, is to stop ever trying to be professionally, personally, whatever. It doesn't matter. Stop trying to be anything you think somebody else wants you to be, because it's completely not worth it. Ever. Never. You're never. That's it.
Do you want to, how about, since you have some things, some images from your tours and also I
have like
projects.
Weird, yeah.
So
Okay, so
why don't we go look at some of the older things from, I know they were just snippets, and you can kind of explain why you don't have that era documented so well, and then
right.
and then show some of the projects that BRM Production Management is doing.
I started touring in like 2003 or 4. Okay, camera phones were not a thing. Not a thing. So like pictures were pictures. And I probably have like a Tupperware container somewhere full of like all the embarrassing pictures of me from the 90s and early 2000s. Unfortunately, that wasn't what I came up with. So I have a smattering of like old stuff that's either just going to be like super lame or mildly entertaining. And we're about to find out which. So let's see if I can make these bigger while they come up. So this is like probably like 18-year-old me doing my first Celtics parade. These parades became shockingly the norm. I just want to make really not sports ball at all. How money's money and parades. So putting big scenic pieces on flatbeds and rolling them down the street with like bands playing, also fun. So I used to do a bunch of the parades. This was, you know how your parents are always like, I saw you in the newspaper. Whatever happens. So my mother decided to cut a piece out of a newspaper of me climbing onto the stage at a Kenny Chesney show in who even knows when this was. I have absolutely no idea. This was this was how I learned how to drive a forklift. And this, I think it was somewhere in Florida. Don't ever do this, is all I can say. Don't ever, if someone ever says, let's take 3 forklifts or 4 forklifts and pick something up, your answer is, we should just get a crane. Because this violates everything. This is at the Songus Center. No, I lied. Manchester. This is up in Manchester. This was probably in the early 2000s. This is where I learned to rig. That room is about 110 feet at the center to the scoreboard, and a heck of a place to learn how to do rigging. This is, I don't even know why I have this, but this is if you ever thought that touring was glamorous, I'm just going to let you know that you spend an exorbitant amount of time standing on sidewalks with your luggage. This is, so I have done many of the Burton US Opens. I've also done a ton of X Games and Dew Tours. And so this is the half pipe from one of the first ones that I did. And my job was to build all the lighting towers that went up either side on this year. I've had other jobs in other years, but this year my job was to do all these lighting towers, which is a pain in the arse and really cold. This is more recent. This is about 10 years ago. Oh, that makes me sound old. And this was somewhere in Australia for my 30th birthday. I came in to do the show, and my console, that's my automation console. My console was covered in black balloons and over-the-hill cards because my friends are terrible. Shortly after that, I went on tour with Iron Maiden. To this day, the only tour I've been on where our plane was branded and flown and piloted by the band. That's not terrifying at all. Everything's fine. This is typical day in automation land. Much darkness, many buttons. This was a common practical joke of, gosh, I need that, where did it go? And then you look up and someone's hung it above the floor, and then you have to such to get your things back that you super need. This was super embarrassing because this was on Britney Spears' Facebook page, and I found out because someone screenshotted it and sent it. That's a camel. This is City with Britney Spears, and this is what 88,000 people look who are invited to a free concert in the center of Mexico City. It was bananas. I have no idea where this was, but it's somewhere in South America, and I think it's that same Britney Spears tour. That is in South Africa on a day off Michael Bublé tour. We got to jump off of the world's highest bungee jumping bridge, which is called Bluekrans. I believe it's 400 feet. I don't remember anymore. It was a long time ago. It was super fun. That is a big automated video wall that I toured with for 2.5 years, amongst some other stuff on that tour. It was my baby, and every day it took about 3 hours to get. So there's so many of this picture because everyone was literally waiting for me every day. Not every gig is awesome, like cold. That's somewhere in Asia for Buble. That's an end of a Buble tour with everyone else who was on the tour. As you can see, and I'm not on this, but I know there are a lot of women who want to get into touring and entertainment. This is relatively recent. Make a mistake that this is still a male industry. Then I started my company, and right here in the center, I promise to always do work that has meaning, my words, on a billboard that we put in the middle of Boston in September of 2016. And it has been my mission since then to always do work that has meaning. This is a free STEM and the Arts Festival up in Lowell, Massachusetts, called Kinetic Sculpture Race. This is my nonprofit pro bono baby. Every year, about 20 teams get together and they race homemade human-powered machines through an obstacle course that's 7 miles long that I create throughout the city of Lowell with mud pits, and they have to go through the sand and the water, and it's super fun and it's totally free. And 2021, it'll be back, and you guys should all come, and it'd be amazing. Big video game conference. And then I joined the Cultural Council. So I decided that I wanted to do work that has meaning. That work led me to join the Lowell Cultural Council. So I help to advise, I'm on a committee with a bunch of other people that helps to advise the city of Lowell and the greater Merrimack Valley on arts and cultures issues, and we help direct grant funding. It's super awesome. These folks are great. I still do a lot of work in Boston. One of my clients is TD Garden, so every once in a while I get to stand next to shiny things, but make sure not to touch them because then people with the white gloves yell at you. This is a staple in Boston now. It's called the Patios. It's a beer garden in front of City Hall Plaza in Boston. This is my brainchild, and next year we'll be bringing it back for its 3rd season. And we just got a 3-year contract to do this for the next 21, 22, and 23. So that's super exciting. Never take yourself too seriously. This is Gillette Stadium. Yep, we're in charge of stuff. And then I walked into a museum, a temporary museum, and saw these pictures were in the wrong order. So I walked into a temporary museum and I was like, wait a minute, hold on a second. What the heck is that? So apparently this is this is supposed to be me, or my costume from the Kinetic Sculpture Race. I thought it was really funny. I wasn't sure what to make of it. That's more patios, ribbon cutting with the mayor. I'm not putting these pictures in here on purpose, but like seriously, it is a male-dominated industry. But this is 4th of July in Boston. And this is that one I talked about last year with Nick Cave. That's Nick on the right with his partner Bob on the left, and one of the 5 creations of Nick's above us that was breathing. So the fans are on timers, and the whole thing would get smaller and larger and breathe, and it was really, really incredible. I think that's about it. Oh, and this is this year where we all do nothing and we make sad faces and hashtags and wear masks. So that was definitely the how we got to here in as many images as I could dig up on my computer.
It's a lot.
I had some stuff. Apparently this. Okay, so now you're just walking around my house. But so this thing here is, if you look up like old like roadie stories and like touring things, they used to give out platinum albums, and record companies used to do it. So like if you were part of the team that sold this many records, or you were part of that crew, you would get a platinum album. Well, since albums have kind of not been a thing in a while, or not as, they're coming back, but you know what I mean. Now they do these platinum framed poster things. And so, or not poster things, but it's really nice. So it's got a little plaque with your name, and then 3 million copies or 3 million sales worldwide. And then the flags are all the countries that we traveled to on that tour. So every country we did a show in, or multiple shows in. And then just to the side of that is my pass wall. So these are the bigger shows. These are the shows that actually had laminates. A lot of shows don't. They have the silk sticky stuff, which is totally legit. But bigger shows have laminates. So the laminates made it to the wall. And that's like, every once in a while, it's like literally across from my bathroom. So every once in a while I'll come out in the morning and I'm like brushing my teeth. And it's super surreal to be brushing your teeth and being like, I am looking at the last 20 years of my life. It fits on 2 pieces of wire. Okay, I think I'm okay with this. In there, for anyone who does enjoy sports ball, it's totally wasted on me and I'm sorry, but there's a bunch of Super Bowls in there too. I just do the artist relations there. I don't interact with the sports ball. And yeah, a lot of festivals and a lot of tours. And then that's a poster from one of the kinetic race things. I'm bad with this. But there have been 5 of them. I'm just terrible at framing stuff. I don't really know. I don't know what else is interesting here.
Well, I would like to ask a question because we've kind of explored like where you've been, and I know one of the topics you and I got together in April, right, with some students and talked about the landscape and or I should say more specifically the changing landscape of the arts. And I know you've been been involved in things that are looking to adapt what you do to continue your mission to help people make big art. And I'm wondering what the last half year has brought you in terms of like projects that you've started or things that you're learning about adaptation.
Yeah, so adaptation has been huge. And it's been, I had some choices to make this spring. I had some choices to make that were based on like, what do I need to do the boring stuff, to pay the bills, to keep people on payroll, to make sure that like the company literally survived. And then the other question was, what do I need to do from like my personal standpoint for like, what is going to help my soul survive this? And not feel like I'm just selling out to run web conferences. So we have, as a company, as a team, we have done some of that pivot. We are organizing Zoom webinars for people that we care about, stuff that matters to us. And that's where we drew the line, was we will organize Zoom webinars as a pivot for our business, and we will manage those from a technological standpoint if the webinars are for clients or for people or for causes that we are actually passionate about. So like this coming week, we're doing 2. One is for a public art accelerator program. So it's a bunch of guest speakers and panelists that are talking about young artists coming up and their first experiences in public art. And it goes everything from like fabrication through permitting and implementation. And that's super close to my heart. And then the other one is a 4-part webinar series for a Black fiber artist named Karen Hampton, and she's absolutely amazing, and I've known her for years, and she got a grant to do a 4-part webinar series on the history of Black fiber arts, and so we are definitely jumping on board for that one as well. Oh, good, somebody knows her. So Tina, she lives like 2 blocks from here, and she's amazing. So I'm super excited. I'm pretty sure her webinar is free. So you should Google it and would love to see you there. That'd be amazing. So that's the pivoting we've done, is that we have kind of dipped into digital stuff, as much as that is not my wheelhouse anymore. Like I used to be an IT nerd, and now I would much rather just build stuff with my hands. But we kind of had to like go back there and do it for utilitarian reasons, because you can't really fight what's happening right now. Even if it's not going to be this way forever, we do need to make the best of it. And we still need to get people's art and their voices out there. And if I can help do that, then that's still on mission for me. And then from another standpoint, we actively chose not to jump in on the drive-in theaters, drive-in movies, drive-in stuff that's been happening. because I didn't feel passionate about that. And I didn't feel like it was logistically that safe. And I mean like COVID safe. I just haven't felt that any of the implementation of those performances or shows, and everyone can disagree with me if you want, and that is totally fine because most people do on this point, is I just feel like that's a Band-Aid. And I feel like there's an energy. There's a reason I got into doing live shows and like public art and live performance. It's because there's an energy there. There is something that is irreplaceable about, doesn't matter how long it took you to build it. It doesn't matter anything else. When the house lights go off and the stage lights come on, and that can be a literal stage or, you know, just a piece of art at night out in the city or whatever. But when the house lights go down and the stage lights come on, there is an energy that is irreplaceable. And that energy is created in part by all of those people. And it's fed upon, and that's the thing that always drew me in. That's what got me. Like, if you have your terrible day or you get a terrible week or a terrible month, when you open a show, even if it is a piece of art or it's an opening or a performance, it's that moment when lights go off and that thing becomes alive, that makes all of it worth it. And that, I just don't feel like that's being achieved by these drive-in things, these Band-Aids, these stuff where like people are super separated. Like, yeah, it sucks. We all can't be near each other right now. You know, my business is financially flailing. Yeah, we get it. It all sucks and we want to do stuff. But I think people's safety is more important right now than doing stuff. I don't know if we have to edit this out, but half-assed. I've been really good with the words. You know me, I've been real good.
I think what you just said was like incredibly poignant. And as someone who's watched people try to neglect where we are, and to just kind of try to get back to doing things the way we were before it's done in a mindful and safe way, I'm in your camp there. So it's okay to say half-assed, especially when
I'm not sure. So yes, I think that all of us having lived through this, if we come out of this and pretend it didn't happen, that is a blown opportunity on the proportions of the blown opportunities every generation before us has blown. So we have to learn from this. We have to be more mindful, as Martin said. I think that it's going to be a weird, rocky road to figuring out how to do live art and live performance safely. And yeah, there might, not to get too far into it, but there might be vaccines and things that make it easier to be closer to the way we were. But we need to take this and go, all right, if this were to ever happen again or something like this, how can we protect the arts? Because the arts were completely left to fall flat this time. And because there was no plan, and we're 8 months into this and there's still no plan. And I'm extremely vocal outside of a classroom about my views on the lack of plan. However, I think that if we don't learn from this and we don't make some policy and make some change to protect the arts in the future and start to think about things in a way where people can interact with them without having to put themselves at risk. And I think it's tough and it's really, really hard. But I think that there are opportunities here to make positive changes and to hold on to those.
I actually would like to, I think that's a really good stopping point given where we are in time. And I know there's some other questions that go back a little bit, but I want to, in gratitude for your time, I want to close things here officially and just say a huge thank you for adjusting your schedule to make time to share with us. It means so much to hear where you might be going as a student, and to have a moment to talk to someone who's gone through the same experiences that they're going through, and also trying to figure out where we're going from here. So thank you so much to Bianca.
Also still a student, guys. Like, I'm not formally in school anymore, but the one thing I want to say to all of you is, like, the fact that you are here and in the middle of a pandemic and you're figuring out Zoom, and the fact that Martin's here and he's figuring out a way to share his insights with you, this is what's super important. The fact that you guys are still willing and hungry to learn, and that you're all adjusting your lives around it. And that's what's huge and important. It's just never, whatever's going on, to not stop learning.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bianca.